Hey loves, welcome back to my channel. Today guys, I'll be checking out this interesting video from Sky News Australia, and it's titled Extraordinary Failure. Douglas Murray race on Conservative Party ahead of UK election. You guys, I'm excited for this, and without much ado, let's see what this video is all about.
Joining me now is best-selling author of groundbreaking works, including his latest, The War on the West. He's one of the finest thinkers of his generation, Douglas Murray. Let's start with the EU elections. Voters in 27 countries of the European Union went to the polls, and as you predicted, Europe's swing to the right continued. Right-wing parties recorded some stunning results in a number of countries, and it's quite a contrast to what we're about to see in the UK, with a hard left Labour Party almost certain to win in a landslide.
That's right, Rita. It's extraordinary. Next month, in July, the British public will get to go to the polls. After 14 years of Conservative majority rule, the Conservatives look set to have a historic defeat. There's even polls this week that would put them as the third party in Parliament beneath the Liberal Democrats. This would give a thumping majority to the Labour Party, even bigger than the Blair landslide in 1997. It's an astonishing prediction, and I think all the polls show that it's basically immovable now. And it's a result of something that you and I have talked about before, Rita, which is the extraordinary failure of the Conservative Party under now 5 prime ministers to do what the public has asked them to do. I mean, for instance, David Cameron came in 2010 promising to bring net migration down from the hundreds of thousands a year to tens of thousands. And the latest figures were almost 1 million. So the British public, from disgust at the Conservative Party and its treachery and failure of any attempt to really keep its mandate, is going to be voted out. And in the British system, there's really only one way to do that, which is to be voting in Labour. Meantime, as you say, the whole of the European continent is going to the right, and to parties, indeed, which until very recently were described as far right. I noticed that the new one that the media is doing is calling parties hard right, which is a strange and suggestive title. But it seems that hard right is what we now have to call parties that we used to call far right once they actually get into power or become the main party representing their country in the European Parliament. It's an astonishing turn-up.
It is, and with the EU elections, we saw in France, Marine Le Pen's national rally had a remarkable result. Macron's now called a snap poll for later in the month, and it's interesting that in France, as elsewhere in Europe, it's largely young voters who are veering to the right. Again, a significant departure from what we see in other parts of the West. In France, they've got a charismatic 28-year-old, Jordan Bardella, who's using social media really effectively to connect with young voters. Do you see that trend being replicated in countries like Australia and US and UK, where young voters tend to vote for left-wing parties? Often even Labor's not left-wing enough for them. They're opting for parties left of Labor.
Yes, I mean, that's been the trend and the expectation, but the European continent is bucking that trend. And I think there are some obvious explanations for that. One is that the technocrats who've been in charge turn out not to be all that good at being technocrats. I mean, take the case of Emmanuel Macron. He's a respected figure. He came from nowhere, blew right through the center of French politics when he first ran. Now, he had a reputation as being an efficient technocrat. He wasn't especially inspiring, but that he could sort of do the business. Particularly, people believed him when he said that he could take charge of the economy. He was one of the grown-ups in the room. Well, 2 weeks ago, Standard & Poor downgraded the French economy just ahead of the EU election. And that is something which I think has been massively overlooked by the foreign press. when somebody says, look, I know migration's out of control. I know that we have serious security problems. I know that people keep on blowing stuff up in our country or trying to blow stuff up. After all, there was an attack that was thwarted just a couple of weeks ago from an Islamist cell that were trying to attack the forthcoming Paris Olympics. Okay, you know,
You guys, what are your thoughts on this video? One thing about Douglas Murray is that he is very, very knowledgeable. And I wish the younger generation can listen to Douglas Murray every single day, because there's a whole lot to learn from Douglas Murray. Let me know what you guys think about the oncoming UK election. How do you think it's going to play out? Which party do you think is going to win? Leave your thoughts in the comment section down below, and let's continue watching, you guys.
I'm trying to keep on top of that. But the main thing is that I'm in charge of the economy and I can do a good job. When that proves not to be the case, I think the voters think quite understandably, look, the thing you said you could do, you couldn't do. And there's all this other stuff you haven't done. We'll try someone else. And I think that's what's happening across the continent. But you're right, Rita. It's a really interesting reversal of what was expected to be the trend. Maybe we've all been led astray by this weirdo far left fringe in all of our countries who sort of portray themselves as the voice of the next generation. And maybe they're not. Maybe they're not at all. And the young French and others are actually going to the right. Jordan Bardella is one example. And the media are desperately trying to portray his victory in exactly the terms I predicted they would. The BBC's Europe editor, I don't know if she spends any time in Europe, has written about the far right being on the march. Interestingly enough, Rita, on Monday night of this week, the far left were on the march in Paris, with leading left-wing politicians among their midst, protesting and indeed in the end rioting and having to be dispersed by the Paris police. But you know what, Rita? None of the media, weirdly, have said the far left is on the march. I wonder why. It's almost as if they believe only the far right is ever able to march, whereas the far left is, of course, this entirely benign force, which is, of course, who the media really want to be in charge. So don't show them as being in a bad light.
And they decline to even call them far left. It's just left-wing parties, even if they are characterised that way, or extreme left is never used as it is for right-wing parties. We've seen Donald Trump recently join TikTok. He's trying to reach those young voters. It was a surprise move. He's had great success so far in reaching a new audience. Let's have a look at his latest post. Here he is with YouTube star Logan Paul.
And where are we?
Yo, I'm scared.
Is he taking note of what is happening in Europe and recognising younger voters have to be reached via these new platforms? It can be quite difficult to get through to them in the mainstream media.
I'm sure he is. I mean, of course, Donald Trump's extraordinary success in 2016 was in large part the result of him using Twitter so well. Of course, you know, the then pre-Elon Musk Twitter couldn't forgive itself for being used in this way, and was obviously mortified. But remember how well he used Twitter. All of the ad money that his opponents were spending on the traditional networks, he didn't need to spend, because everyone was writing about him and talking about him on the basis of any moment's tweet. His two thumbs saved millions and millions of dollars of ad campaign spending. This time, it's sort of inevitable he'll try other mediums, and the TikTok will be one of them. And we'll see if it works. We'll see. There's no reason why young Americans are going to have to vote Democrat any more than why young French voters are going to have to vote for the far left parties there. But you know, Trump is, of course, an extremely engaging performer, and he's a man who grew up in the media. You know, he was a television star before he was president. He's very, very aware and very canny about using media and social media. So it'll be very interesting. I suspect that his rivals will do everything they can to cut off this way of accessing directly the public. But there won't be very much they can do.
Wow, you guys, that was such an interesting one from Douglas Murray, and there's no other platform that says as much as TikTok. And if Donald Trump uses this avenue to reach the younger generation, then I think this will definitely work. But let me know what you guys think about this in the comment section down below. I love how smart and how very, very calculative Donald Trump is, and I love the fact that he's trying to recruit these young YouTube stars into his team that will eventually help him to reach his target. Let me know what you guys think about this video in the comment section down below. Douglas Murray once again said everything that needed to be said when it comes to the UK election and what to expect. Leave your thoughts in the comment section down below. I really had fun with this particular video, and I believe you guys also enjoyed watching, and I'll see you all in my next video. Bye guys.